we're more likely to go towards this. I'm not fulfilled. I'm not feeling good. Then I need to introduce more and more and more, or I need to fix this problem by adding this thing and this thing and this thing. And it's always about more. But one thing that I really like to do in these spaces where we can get really focused on what more to add to fix problems is to take a step back and start thinking about, again, like the things I already have or that are already in my direct world.
Game-changing transits are those fateful moments in life when everything changes and you can just never go back. If you're trying to figure out when they're going to happen next for you and what to expect, you can join us for free on March 22nd and 23rd on our special event, Game-Changing Transits. You're going to learn from 12 amazing astrologers, myself included, and you can sign up at astrologyhub.com/game-changing. Again, that's astrologyhub.com/game-changing.
Welcome, everyone. I am so happy that you're here. You have just joined a worldwide astrological conversation that's happening here every single week. For those of you who are new to our channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you know whenever a new video arrives here on the platform. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Amanda Poole-Walsh. I'm the founder of Astrology Hub. And right now we are going to be talking about the astrology of March 13th to the 19th with traditional astrologer, ceremonial magician, and Astrologer Connect astrologer and podcast producer here at Astrology Hub, Joe G. So Joe has been on the... Hi, Joe. Joe's been on the show several times, and we love all the feedback that we've received about Joe's astrology. Joe is particularly good at something that's called electional astrology, which enables you to select the right date for the thing that you're wanting to do. So maybe that's launching a business, writing a book, finding the right time to move, or have a conversation with your boss, whatever it is, the things that are really dependent on just finding that perfect moment. Joe is amazing at these kinds of questions in astrology. So it's perfect to have him here for the weekly weather, because we're going to be looking at the week ahead and looking at the different kinds of tides and what kinds of things are supported and which things you might not want to do this week. And so, Joe, again, welcome. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So let's start.
Really nice.
Yeah, this is really nice. Let's start with that big picture theme. What is the theme for the week?
Yeah. So it's funny because last time that I was on the weekly weather, I talked about Mars and the Mars Retrograde and the effects of the Mars Retrograde. And now I'm back in the week where we're actually closing that retrograde cycle. So I think the theme really is closure and like getting closure on your desires in some level. Because I think this story is not just about Mars, but it's also about Neptune and how they're both playing with each other. And Neptune is also getting a lot of action this week. So we're really going to sit with those two planets and see what they mean and how they can impact the week.
So when you say closure on your desires, are you saying that we have been in a cycle in the last couple months and there's been a storyline to that cycle, and that this week is a closing of that cycle? Am I reading that right when you say closure on our desires?
Yeah. And I think it could even be like closure on your dreams or something like that. Because I feel like sometimes we can get really tied up to a goal or an aspiration or a dream or just this big thing that we want to have happen or we want to achieve. But then we can be trapped by that to have that thing come true. And sometimes it doesn't. And it doesn't because it's supposed to happen. And sometimes it does. And we can get a little bit, I guess, our expectations were so high that when we actually do have the thing, it doesn't feel as great. So I think that when I'm saying closure, it's really getting that sense of like, this is what's possible within my capacity. Because last time when I talked about Mars and Gemini, it was about this, I want to do every single thing all at the same time. And this like really big dream of like achieving all of those things. But now that we're ending this cycle, this retrograde cycle, we have seen what can be done and what cannot be done. So it's really getting that sense of closure on your capacity, on what you can actually handle and what you even want. Because maybe some of the things that you thought you wanted, you don't really.
Oh
And you
gosh,
kind of moved on from them.
I love that reminder. I literally said to someone the other day, they were asking me about the book, which, as you know, and many of the people on the podcast had heard me talking about the book for a long time. And I went, you know what I've realized? I've realized that you can't do everything all at once. All the things that you want to, and probably the book won't be published this year, but it might be published the year after that or the year after that. And so it all comes back down to timing again, like everything in astrology, right? It doesn't mean that the book will never happen, but it doesn't appear likely that the book is going to be able to happen this year. So it's like this reality check is what I'm hearing, like this reality check of what are the confines of this particular reality? What are the confines of my energy? Like how much of me is actually available to create all these things that I want to create? And can I have patience to just trust that the things, the desires in me will come to fruition at some point if they're meant to, right, Joe? Or not, and sometimes it's just about waiting for the right moment.
Yeah, because I think too, like sometimes, speaking of Neptune, sometimes the idea of the thing is just so much greater than the actual thing. And sometimes it's actually better to let those things go, because then we see how it feels to not have that thing that you desire. And maybe in tapping into that and allowing yourself to discover other avenues, you find something that was actually meant for you, or it was something that maybe will even lead back into that dream in a different way. Does that make sense?
Oh,
It
yeah.
does.
It does. And there's a lot to explore here, but what I'm hearing is it's really important to be okay with letting go of certain things and also maybe recognizing what you have accomplished or what has actually come to fruition. I know we're also at the end of the astrological year. And so many people are looking forward and starting their treasure map process, the treasure mapping. But part of the end before we do the treasure map is okay, I'm closing out that vision that I had for the year ahead. I'm taking stock of all the things that actually did happen, which I know for most people who have done treasure maps, it's like, wow, like a lot of the things actually did happen. So taking the moment to celebrate and actually recognize how far you have come seems really important in like the closure process as well.
Yeah. And even if it's not that like that one thing that you wanted to be done, like all the other things are just as worthy as long as you're willing to put them in that worthy space, You're willing to be thankful for them in the first place,
Yes. I love what you said too about a lot of times the things we think we want, we get them and we're like, like that didn't feel the way I thought it would feel. And it just reminds me anytime I hear something like that it's about the process itself. It's about the creation itself. That's the thing to enjoy because the end result is usually not the thing that we thought it would be, So enjoying the actual process of creating as we do it, then if it's a great experience at the end, great. And if it's not, we enjoyed the process the whole time.
Yeah. And I actually have a personal example about this because I said it last time, but this Mars station retrograde was actually the degree of my Mars. So like this story was very like highlighted for me. And in the topic of getting things that you think you want, but then you don't want in a very Neptunian fashion, because Neptune not rules over the arts, but is very closely related to the arts. I bought a whole bunch of instruments. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a whole setup and it's going to sound amazing. And I spent a whole lot of money on all these instruments. And then they ended up not working together very well. And I couldn't do quite what I thought I wanted. And in the end, I just had to return back to the instruments that I did have and were working just fine. And I just ended up returning everything in a very retrograde sort of sense. So it's I think the lesson here, especially with this topic of Mars and trying to do everything, is maybe try to do the things that you're already pretty good at doing first before you start introducing all of these new other things or these new other desires. Because sometimes like we want that thing just to procrastinate really on the things that we are able to do in that moment, you know?
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's the reflection for the week.
Yeah, distractions. They're like distractions that are taking us away from the actual path. I love that.
Yeah.
And I love that during Mars retrograde, we got to probably experience some of those things that are distracting us from the actual course forward. Right?
100%. Like Jen's art says the squirrel, the Mars
Yes.
Gemini squirrel.
Yes. I've definitely had some squirrel action going on for sure.
Moments.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay. I mean, I think it's when you realize like there's so many things that seem fun or like paths to go down and things that are interesting. And like you said, it's, sometimes just focusing on the things that you have that you're good at that are in your sweet spot. That's the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe. So
Less
let's
is more.
break it down. Less is more? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So let's break it down. Let's walk through the days of the week.
Yeah. So we're really starting the week today with this Mars sort of story. Like that is the highlight of the week, but also the way that it's starting out. And again, in this whole Mars Neptune square, I always like to explore something that I kind of made up because the in traditional astrology, the outer planets don't rule planets. So I always struggle to really try and interpret this. So I came up with something that I like to call like the worship system, as in like the outer planets are like the gods of the other gods. And I always try and understand like who would then pray to who would go to whose altar and all things like that. And the way that I like to understand like Mars and Neptune in this whole scheme is that Neptune, what we know is about like depths. It's like that massive like body of water where you can get lost into. And if we try to see where Mars could relate to that, we then turn to Scorpio, of course. So like Scorpio is the night or the feminine side of Mars. And it's that really like surrender to the hunt even, or the surrender to again your desires and the surrender to your needs. And right now, Neptune is in those bits of Pisces. They're really martial and then really speak of that, not just the desire, but the hunger to really go deep and to really find like what's the next thing? What's the next thing that will make me feel happy, or the next thing that will make me feel fulfilled? And sometimes, especially through a square, that can be a little bit of a tension. Like I was saying, in this like less is more sort of like motto for the week, is that with Neptune Mars squares, we're more likely to go towards this like I'm not fulfilled, I'm not feeling good, then I need to introduce more and more and more to like my diet, or I need to fix this problem by adding this thing and this thing and this thing. And it's always about more. But one thing that I really like to do in these spaces where we can get really focused on what more to add to fix problems is to take a step back and start thinking about, again, like the things I already have, or like the things that are already in my direct world. And instead of adding something new, and when I say adding something new, I'm not really saying like buying something or going out in some exploration. It's really more so about doing the things that you have already done in the past, because again, these are cycles. So you have been here before. It's nothing new. So really turning back to those moments where you felt fulfilled and you felt okay, you felt fine, even if that was like sitting in a meditation, or if that was just going to sleep earlier and that made you feel good, then do that. you know. But the reason why I'm going into this like sleep space is that one of the things that I think Neptune, and most people think about Neptune, is the idea of dreams. So and a big part of my practice is really stepping into the transit. Like if the transit is asking for that tension, or for like that hunt, or like that desire to be fulfilled, how can I do that in a way that is safe for me and it's not making me feel more anxious. So one of the exercises that I came up for that transit specifically, and it's a Monday and Tuesday thing. So we can really take those 2 days, well, really the Monday night and the Tuesday morning to do this exercise. Because I was thinking, what could be a hunt that is very safe and in this Neptunian space? And I always love doing like dream exercises where I willingly will go to sleep with like an intention and like, I want to have this dream tonight because I want this answer to whatever question that I have. So in a Mars Neptune, when talking about hunt, I'm like, maybe we can set the intention before going to bed on this Monday night to go on a hunt and to find this one thing that is making us feel uneasy or making us feel like we need something more or something other than what we already have. Like, you will find this in your dream. Just set the intention, go to bed, and do the Marsy thing. Get your dream weapons and set off in that journey and see what comes up. Because I think, especially as we're closing this Mars and Gemini cycle, again, like less is more, and we're trying to find our limits. So I'm hoping that in this little exercise, in this little discovery, we do find what the one necessary thing is. And then when we wake up in the morning on the Tuesday morning, we're able to like set some time aside to be with your journal and start writing down all the other things that were not that. Like you went in your dream hunt, you found your one thing, everything else that's in your mind that is not that thing can be set aside, even if it's just for the week or just for the rest of the month or the rest of Mars and Gemini. But I think it's a really, really important exercise right now because we're all in this sensory overload space because Mars is really about like the Mars and Gemini is really about this nervous energy of like, oh, I just need to do everything. So now is the time to really start cutting all of those off because also the last few degrees of Gemini really are about making like decisive moves. So I hope that this exercise will help you get into that sort of zone. Does that make sense?
Let me see if I understand. So we go to sleep and we're asking for insight on, we're going to go on a hunt for the one thing that's like the source of feeling unfulfilled. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So give me an example of what that might be.
Yeah. So if we're feeling unfulfilled, there's usually a thing that will fill that up. I'll use that instrument example. I thought that I needed that one more instrument to make my whole setup sound exactly as I wanted. But if I had set the intention to go on that hunt, if I didn't find that instrument in my hunt, that's probably not the thing that would make me feel fulfilled. Maybe what I would have found instead was just the one instrument that I already have just sitting there. And I will figure out that that's the thing that I was hunting for all along. Or maybe what I really needed was just to have someone else listen to the songs that I've written. And maybe in my dream hunt, I will find a person listening to my music. That's kind of the idea that I had for this.
Gotcha. And that would eliminate some of this kind of squirrely energy of feeling like we need to get more or have more or accomplish more, because we'll have that streamlined ability to find the source of it, the source of the feeling of unfulfillment. I love it. Okay. So we're doing that Monday night when we go to sleep and then on Tuesday we wake up with some answers. And it'd be really fun to hear what you all find in the comments if you are so inclined to share. Yeah.
And it's really that's Carpionic sort of thing. Like, don't be afraid to go deep and even be a little metaphorical. Because the thing that you might find in your dream might not be like a literal, like tangible thing. Because a lot of the times the things that fulfill us most are not concrete objects. So you might just find, like, I don't know, your long lost friend from 20 years ago.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Joe. So we have Monday and Tuesday, this Mars Neptune square energy, right?
Mhm. Yeah. And then keeping up with the dream theme, and I think this is a thing that will continue to come up. On Wednesday, we have the Neptune cazimi. So if you don't know what a cazimi is, it's just a conjunction of the sun to a planet. So the sun and Neptune will be in the same spot in the zodiac this whole time. And I think to understand this one, the really important thing is to go back to Mars, because Mars and the sun are actually exchanging phases. It's a very traditional astrology term. But what that means is that there's a space in Gemini that is owned by the sun, and Mars is there right now. And that space is all about, again, making those like decisive moments. Even one of the things that Johannes Engel, he's like an English astrologer from the Renaissance. He says that those 10 degrees, that 10-degree space of Gemini is about forgetfulness and oblivion and just like really like forgetting something. And when you're making a decision to go a certain route, you're really forgetting the other. So that's kind of the idea here. But then the sun in Pisces is in those 10 degrees. They're ruled by Mars. And Johannes Engel says that those degrees are about, again, desire. It's about sex. It's about like looking for fulfillment. And he even says looking for like actual food to nourish you. So imagine those two planets, they have these roles. One of them is to forget and to move in a certain direction. And the other one is lust and to fulfill that lust. Now imagine those two exchanging roles and kind of like playing each other's roles in a way. So to me, what this really speaks of is like getting to that like lust, like sexual fulfillment, and not literal like sexual as in like the act of sex, but really just that sexual energy of like creation and like generating something or like making something out of an action. And again, it's a really strange thing because we're getting asked to do something by doing nothing. We're getting asked to move into a direction or have this decisive moment by forgetting something else. So I think that Wednesday will be one of those days where we're really getting asked to like let go of, if we're going back to what we're talking about in the beginning of the episode, maybe let go of those goals that are not really achievable. Like you're seeing that they're not achievable anymore, but maybe not just for right now, you know? So I think that the point of Wednesday would be to like let go of the expectations that you've had for the past 6 months. Because again, this is all about that Mars retrograde story. So if you continue to carry those things with you after this whole chapter is done, then that nervous energy and that restlessness and the lack of fulfillment will just continue to marinate. So this Neptune cazimi is a really great time to kind of just let go of whatever that thing was. And I even think it's important to mention that the sun and Neptune also have a lot more in common than like most people think. Like the sun traditionally even rules prophecy and like dream interpretation. And if you think about like the god Apollo, it's all about that, and also creativity and music and performance. So maybe Wednesday could even be a good day to take that exercise that we did on Monday and Tuesday. And we literally did dream interpretation, and maybe turn it into like a song, or turn it into like a piece of art, or just write a poem about it, because the power to interpret those things is really there with that Neptune cazimi, you know, that the power to like make those very abstract and intangible concepts not abstract and tangible is really there. So that's your chance, sort of thing.
Mm. Interesting about Sun and Neptune having more in common than one would think. I would think they have almost nothing in common. So the fact that Sun is prophecy and some other things that we normally think of with Neptune is really interesting. I love that.
I'm born with the Sun-Neptune opposition, so I can attest to that, to the power of Sun-Neptune things.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. All right. So how about, is that all for Wednesday, or is there anything else about Wednesday that we need to know?
I think that is all for Wednesday, because Thursday we continue in this Neptune realm. But like I said, Neptune is really busy this week. So, and with that said, I think it's really important to go into the week without too many expectations for concrete things, because Neptune's so busy. There's so much action with Neptune. I think it's really important to use this week as the space to reflect and to surrender and to dream and to be more in this flowy sort of state. Because by the end of the week, by Friday, something very exciting is happening that will be a little bit rewarding if you take the time to like reflect. So on Thursday, now we have Mercury and Neptune coming together. So we just had the sun, and like I was saying, the sun and Neptune, the gift of prophecy and the gift of like clarity about unclear things is there. On Thursday, it's kind of a bit of a reversal of that, because Mercury and Neptune, now those are two planets that really kind of struggle to get along. Mercury is all about the tiny little things and making sense of everything. It's the planet of language. It's the planet of understanding. Neptune blurs all of that out. If we're taking all these exercises, Thursday would probably be the day to step back from it and just go for a walk and do some reflection and not really look for those answers. Just let them marinate a little bit. With Mercury, Neptune, it's about speaking without words. So really like stepping into that nothingness space and trying to not understand it or not to explain it, but to just be at peace with that lack of words, you know? Does that make sense? I know I'm getting into a very Neptunian place here.
Yeah. It's beingness. It's just about your state of being. It reminds me of this U2 song. It's called Running to Stand Still. Do you remember that one from Joshua Tree? You gotta cry without weeping, talk without speaking, scream without raising your voice. Like this, it's like, okay, what does that mean? But to me, it's about your state of being and allowing that to be the focus and that to be the communication. And so,
Yeah.
what state of being are you, and how are you, allowing your energy to speak for you instead of needing to use words?
Or even just getting rid of the need to communicate anything in the first place, or to be understood, or
Right.
to just kind of like take that one day where you don't have to say anything. No one has to say anything back to you. Like, yes, you have to talk to people, but more so in that, like, there's no need to make anything super serious. Maybe just take a more poetic route to Thursday and just listen to like the drops of water just like falling from your faucet, and I don't know.
I love it.
What that means.
Joe, it reminds me of the Saturn conversation that we recently had with Natasha Alter on the podcast, and how she was walking us through the like phases of incarnating into a body, and how we come from this very Neptunian oneness, kind of like blob, sort of, but connected to all. And then as we incarnate and we go through the gates of the different planets, we get more dense, we get form, we get boundary, we get skin, we get bones, and we actually become form. But that we still remember formlessness. And some of us remember it more than others. And probably people with lots of Neptune in their charts remember it a lot. In that way, that's why it can be so uncomfortable to be here in this dimension at times, especially for people who are very Neptunian. But it sounds like this is a great day for the Neptunian souls out there. And for anybody that doesn't necessarily feel like that's a natural thing to do, to like kind of be in oneness and formlessness and like that sort of connected to all, that we'll have more access to it, or we'll have an opportunity to experience it on Thursday. It's what I'm saying. Yeah?
Yes, 100%. And I think that a good warning too for like Mercury Neptune things is to like not take things that you read online or things that like you see on the news very seriously that day. Just because the again, words are not the strong suit for Thursday. Like
Hey, this
your words are not your friend.
this
Not
is
today.
not the day to have that conversation with your boss, is what you're saying, or that conversation with
100%.
your spouse or your partner. This is not the day to do that. Okay.
It's the day to write a poem for your partner, maybe, but not to have like a very direct conversation.
Right.
Actually, Friday is the day to write the poem, which we'll get to next.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go for it.
Yeah, so Friday is super exciting because one thing that I didn't mention, Thursday is actually the first day that Venus will be entering Taurus for the first time in a long time without Saturn being in Aquarius, which means that, because if you don't know, Taurus is a fixed sign, Aquarius is a fixed sign. So whenever we have two planets, one on each of those signs, they'll be square one another. And Venus likes to have fun in Taurus. It's all about the sensory pleasures. It's about the body and it's about food and it's about really indulging in all of these things. But with a square to Saturn, you can't really enjoy those things as much because there's very serious and pressing things to do before you get to enjoy all of those things. But now Saturn has actually moved into Venus's exaltation sign. So Saturn is really having to allow Venus to have her moment a little bit more. And of course, with Saturn and Pisces, things can get a little bit confusing and sometimes it can even come with like a sense of guilt for having those pleasures, but you're feeling guilty because you're having the space to have them. And especially after a long while of Saturn in Aquarius, of Saturn being super strong and creating those restrictions, to not have them anymore might feel a little bit jarring. So I think this Friday, the reason why I was saying that the exercises from Monday through Thursday would be so rewarding Friday is that after all of that reflection that you did and after really going on that hunt on Monday and finding that desire, Venus on Friday is like, hey, I can actually provide that. Like that thing that you found out that you actually do want, I can make it happen. So I really wanted to invite everybody to really invite Venus into Taurus on a Friday as the sun is rising, because the Friday is Venus's day, and the first hour of every day is that same planet's hour. So at sunrise, it will be the day of Venus and the hour of Venus with Venus in Taurus. It cannot get better than that. So I think that it's really important to allow yourself to take this Friday, the first Friday of Venus in Taurus without Saturn in Aquarius, to allow yourself those pleasures that maybe you've been deprived from for so long, especially with this Mars in Gemini thing where you're so focused in just doing things. Now it's really the time to like reward yourself and rest and have that really luxurious bath or that luxurious meal that you cooked yourself, you know? And one thing that I even find interesting, just going back to Johannes Engel, because he has a list of images for each of the degrees of the zodiac. And the first degree of Taurus, he says, is the image of a man taking a cow to slaughter. And that seems a little scary, especially for the vegans out there. But the meaning of this all, I find at least, is really that like you've been on this journey. Now you're actually able to like not kill, because I don't think that the theme is really of killing, but it really of like cooking and making a meal. Like you just imagine you were like years and years ago and you have your family and you need to feed them and you just got this whole entire cow. You're able to feed them for the whole entire year. Like you're pretty good. So I think that this first degree of Venus entering Taurus can really be that a moment where you can grab that one thing that you went hunting for Monday and put it at the table and like really and cook and play with it and enjoy. And I even have some items of Venus that you can play with on that day if you like getting crafty. I am a very crafty astrologer. So if you are willing to wake up at sunrise, I would highly recommend sitting and meditating at least for a little bit before you go and do all the fun things. And the image of Venus, the image for you to meditate on, is the image of a lady with loose hair, and she has a mirror in her hand, and she's looking at it. She's looking at her beauty and just basking in it. And I want to invite you to step in the place or in the shoes of Venus and look at that mirror, even if you just grab a literal mirror and just stare at it and see how that feels. And one of the things that you can do too is grab some scents to really help you step into that Venus space. Because one of the things that people don't always think about when they're thinking about astrological magic, because whenever people hear astrological magic, the first thing that they think about is talismans and making things. But sometimes it's really about just putting yourself in the space of that planet. And so bringing as many things of that planet around so you can really start to like feel what Venus feels like. So scents for Venus would be like rose or even almond essence, and mixing those. I love mixing those two together. It smells delicious. And the stones for Venus are sapphire and rose quartz. Rose quartz is my favorite. I like rosy things for Venus. People tend to lean more towards green. I like pink. And then again, colors is green or pink, whichever you prefer. And I think that, oh yes, and food. Yes. One of the things that I also want to invite you to, because again, this will be right at sunrise, and I'm assuming you're going to have breakfast. Maybe we can make a Venusian breakfast experience. We're really going through like sweet fruits and succulent things to really bring that moisture and that sweetness into your day, to really start this whole Venus tree through Taurus, really inviting her in and having a feast with her. So that's my exercise for Friday.
I love that. I mean, that's a fun assignment. And how long is Venus in Taurus?
I think Venus is usually in a sign for about a month. So Venus leaves Taurus on April 11th. So we have from Friday until April 11th to enjoy the Venus in Taurus.
I love it. We get to indulge in all Venusian things. When you were talking about the succulent fruits and things, I've recently re-fallen in love with dates. Dates, like,
oh, nice.
They're like nature's candy.
So
and
good.
It could be any sweeter and like any. I love them so much. So I was imagining a breakfast with lots of dates involved.
Yes.
Yes.
That sounds awesome.
And what do you find is the benefit of like welcoming a planet into a sign? Like what would be the reason to do that beside it's just fun? Why else would we want to do that?
Yeah, I myself identify as like an animist, as a person who believes that everything is alive, like literally everything has a life, and therefore you can become friends with it. So for me, it's really about building that relationship with beauty and with love and with sweetness. So you can start to see it more and to recognize it, because if we see a person once and we know that they exist, next time you see them, you might not notice them. But when we start to really build that relationship, we can really get a real tangible understanding of like, hey, oh, this is Venus. And that doesn't seem super practical, but in times where you need that, you're able to recognize what things you can bring into your day or into your life that will add more of that presence. Especially like, let's say, during a Venus retrograde, which we do have this year, in Leo, later in June. Venus retrogrades can seem a little bit unstable and erratic, and that the energy of that planet might not be as present. So if you're really aware of what Venus is supposed to feel like or Venus looks like, you're able to then put things in your space that will invite more of that energy in. And also, the more you build that relationship, the more it can't leave you. Like you would just always have Venus with you, no matter what. And not just Venus, every other planet,
Yeah, I love that. I love that the cultivation of the direct relationship and the real embodied experience of the energy, because especially if you're wanting to learn astrology and you're wanting to work with astrology or read charts, or it's way different when you feel like you can actually ask the planet, for example, hey, like you're moving into Taurus. How can I honor you there? And then you meet someone with Venus and Taurus and you have even more insights into how they work. Or you're going through a heavy Mars transit, you're wanting to balance it and you're wanting to bring Venus in. It's like, I know how to commune with that essence. And I know we often think of these things outside of us, but they're inside of us too. So it's actually calling forth or cultivating an aspect of yourself that you may not have as much of a relationship with yet, or that you may not be as intimate about yourself with yet. So yeah, I love this. Okay. So fun things on Friday.
Yeah.
How about Saturday? How about the weekend? Does that energy keep going into the weekend?
Yeah, Saturday is kind of uneventful. There's not too much going on, but there was something that I did want to bring about Sunday, just because Saturn has not been in Pisces for too long. And I think it just entered Pisces, what would have been last week. And this is the first time that we'll have the moon go by Saturn in Pisces. And like I was talking about earlier with Mars and the sun, they all have like a bunch of 10 degrees, like a space of 10 degrees in a sign where each, like a planet rules it. And the first 10 degrees of Pisces are ruled by Saturn. So Saturn is in the space in Pisces where it has a little bit of dignity or like a certain level of familiarity. But one of the things that Saturn struggles with in Pisces is that Pisces is a water sign, and with water, we always think of things that are moist and cold. And Saturn is already a cold and dry planet, which, if you notice, like the dryness gets tempered when it's in Pisces. So dryness, to illustrate that in less astrological terms, it's that separation. Think about like sand and things that like break apart. It's like the brittleness of things. So Saturn in Pisces is not as rigid. It might not be as brittle, but it becomes a little colder. And the moon going by there can bring like this emphasis in cold. And sometimes cold is just that distance and that sense of like being really far and removed from other things. You're like distant. And so I think that Sunday might be a really good day to again sit and kind of just explore that feeling, because Saturn will be in Pisces for another 2.5 years. And this is not the first time we're having Saturn in Pisces, but to have that first like moment of the moon illuminating that thing, and the moon is our body. So it's a chance to really feel what that Saturn in Pisces feels like in the body, and even how to feel that sense of distance and disconnection from everything. You're not disconnected because you're not in the world, but it's more like you're so much in the world that you're almost like dissociating from being in that space. Because like I was saying, Saturn's been in Aquarius for so long, and those restrictions became such a big part of life that now moving away from restrictions might feel uncomfortable. And just to use that Sunday to tap into that discomfort and see where it's coming from. Like, you're not going to get answers right away. Again, Saturn is slow. It's going to take 2.5 years for you to figure this out. But this could be a very good moment to have that first step and really kind of just embrace it and feel uncomfortable and disconnected and disjointed for a second, so you can then find yourself or find the source of that. Because I think that Saturn, as the planet that rules roots, really allows you to tap into the root of that discomfort and that disconnect. So
I love it. Well, we're going to be covering Saturn in Pisces because it is such a big transit. Plus Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus entering Gemini, and then personal transits and things like Saturn returns and big outer planet transits in our upcoming game-changing transits. event. And this is a free event that we're hosting here at Astrology Hub, where we are going to be talking about some of these big transits that we're all navigating together right now. And then, like I said, some of the big ones that we all go throughout our lifetime. So that's coming up. It's totally free. That's at astrologyhub.com/game changing. So if you're wondering about, things like the Uranus opposition, the quote unquote midlife crisis that people go through in their 40s, or the first Saturn return, the second Saturn return, this is going to be a really amazing opportunity to learn more about these transits that truly are life changing. That it's like one door opens and another door closes, and life is never the same on the other side of it. And so we're going to be unpacking that with 12 astrologers, including Joe, and really just talking about what these transits mean and what are some great tools and approaches for navigating them in your life. So can't wait for that, Joe. And I'm just going to do a quick recap here, because I'm hearing some pretty clear themes for the week, including this idea of closure. There's the Mars retrograde cycle kind of coming to a close. Lots of Neptunian energy. So this isn't the week to like charge through and get a bunch of stuff done and create really tangible results. It is more of a dreamy, poetic, kind of flowing week. And then to add on top of that, we have all this Venus energy, which is just about enjoyment and pleasure and beauty and all those things that are just always fun to explore. And then this idea of Saturn and Pisces ending up, the moon passing through Saturn and Pisces, closing out the week with a little bit of a potential discomfort, and allowing yourself again to just kind of be with that and feel what that feels like. And we're moving into a very new kind of energy this year. I remember astrologers at our forecast event that we had in December, they all looked at March and went, wow, I mean, everything's changing in March. Like we're talking about one door closing and another door opening. We're in that period of time right now in the year. So just allowing yourself to feel everything that comes up with that process. There's a lot of letting go, a lot of closure, a lot of looking towards the future and dreaming in what's coming next. So it sounds all very exciting. Joe, thank you for helping us get a lay of the land for the week ahead.
Of course. Yeah, I'm always excited to do that.
All right. And if you love Joe G and would love to have a personal reading with him, like I said in the beginning, he's amazing at answering really specific questions about timing, about, when is the ideal time to do certain things? When is not a good time to do certain things? This comes in handy all the time. I use it all the time. Like, hey, Joe, I'm getting my hair cut. Like, when should I do it? I literally ask Joe questions like this because I've made the mistake of not doing it and being like, God, my haircut's horrible. Why is that? And then Joe will look at the chart of when I got my haircut and he'll say, oh, it's because of this. And had you waited 2 hours later, I would have had a different outcome. It's like, oh, not going to make that mistake again. But Joe's amazing. He's on our Astrologer Connect platform right now. So if you want to go book a reading with Joe or see if you can get lucky and see if he's on live to take instant readings, then go to astrologyhub.com/Joe Connect. That's astrologyhub.com/Joe Connect. Or if you want to go to the main Astrologer Connect page and learn about our reading platform, you can go to astrologyhub.com/connect. And you can find Joe there too. All right.
I also wanted to say, anyone who really likes this like magical approach to astrology and you don't know how to get started, I will love to give you recipes.
That's so good. And it is a very specific, I have found like there's people that are really into this aspect of astrology, the real magical aspect where you're co-creating with the energies of the universe and really using the power of your own intention and timing and awareness to bring about certain things that you want to experience in your life. So I love that. Thank you for adding that, Joe.
Of course.
All right. So thanks everybody for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. As always, thank you for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.